Good evening, everyone. Hope you are all fine. This is the event of Hacktoberfest Karachi, and I'm Hunain from Karachi. And with me, there is Ahsan Ayaz and Diana right now. So let me introduce themselves to you. Can you please share your screen?
There we go. All right, everyone, welcome to Hacktoberfest 2020. This is great that you folks have joined this because what a good way to spend your weekend than learning something new. So the topic of today is obviously Hacktoberfest, what it is, how it has helped me do a lot of things, and also how you can get started with the Hacktoberfest itself. I'm going to introduce myself completely in towards the end, but yeah, let's get to the point for which you are here. So open source. Open source is something that has left quite a questions for a lot of people. But what it does is it is an ecosystem that allows a lot of people to work on a single thing, but it doesn't have to be someone within the organization. For instance, Microsoft might have 2,000, 4,000, 10,000 engineers, and they would have a team of, let's say, 100 developers per feature, for instance, Office 360. But if they wanted to increase their resources on that whole feature or product, they might have to hire a lot of people. But when you go open source, the good thing is that your code is accessible to everyone out there, and everyone can contribute to the software to make it better for the world. We have a lot of open source projects out there. For instance, we have VS Code, we have Angular, we have React, Vue, a lot of front-end libraries, we have Node.js, and whatnot. So the question then becomes, what is the benefit of going towards open source? So first of all, if you start working with open source, it really improves your code quality. Why? Because a lot of bright minds actually contribute to open source, and you could be obviously one of them. So when you work with a lot of good people, you see their code, you know how the code is structured, how they work with different tools and ecosystem, and then it ultimately improves your experience and your style of coding in general. You also gain a competitive advantage when you work with open source. And why is that? Because when you go for, let's say, a job or opportunity, you can mention the open source project that you have worked on. You can show them what you have been working on or contributing to, and that actually gives you a competitive advantage over other people as well. One more benefit of open source is obviously it reduces the development cost. Why is that? Because, for instance, if you have a product that you want to build, or if you have a really good idea that could enhance how people develop their web applications or mobile applications, you might have to hire a lot of developers to develop it. But if you make your project open source, a lot of good resources or engineers can actually contribute to your product or your whatever project you are building, and it obviously reduces your development cost because the whole community is now involved in making it better. So there are a lot of examples, as I said, like VS Code and other projects that they don't have to spend a lot of money to hire resources, of course. One more reason why you might want to work with open source is to give back to the world. A lot of developers or a lot of people who develop web apps or mobile apps or platforms, they usually consume different tools, different projects which are out there open source, and they just use it for free. But when you contribute to a project that is being used by thousands of developers, for instance, you actually give back to the world, you give back to the community, and that is something which is really satisfying, and that is really beneficial for everyone else who is using your software. Open source is so much fun. Trust me, guys, on this one. When you work with different projects, you get to see the brilliance in each project in its different way. You will learn a lot of new things that you didn't know before. Even if you knew something, you would know a lot of other ways to do the same things, or you might be introduced with something that has been just recently launched and you didn't know about it. One thing that I really like about open source is the satisfaction. So I feel really satisfied when I see that, hey, the library I've created has, let's say, X number of installs this week or this month, and I know that people are using that. Even if people create issues in my libraries, I feel good because I know that if people are creating issues, that means it is being used and it is being helpful for a lot of people. And I even feel better when people contribute to my work because first, I don't have to work alone. I don't feel a loneliness in that. And secondly, I feel like I have built something that people would like to contribute to. So that's something that I really like about being open source. And when working with open source, you also create an impact. So, uh, for instance, I'm a Google developers expert in Web and Angular, and for that, you need to show an impact to become a GDE. So once you work with open source projects, you get this I would say this record or these numbers of how many people you have impacted that can help you become better at becoming a GDE, for instance, or being eligible. Or even if you are applying for a job, you can say that, hey, I created a library, it has about this number of installs, and you can see that this is my work. So you are actually creating an impact in the community itself. So now quickly jumping on, how do you get started actually? And before actually jumping on that, I'm gonna try to admit Wajahat, if I could. Here we go. And I can quickly close this and get back here. So how do you actually get started? There's a website called First Timers Only. If you go there, it has a list of some open source resources, how you can get started and how you can find your early or good first PRs that you can contribute to. You can find issues and contribute to them. You can also help out with new projects and such. So this is one of the ways you could go there. Or even better, if you just Google uh, how to start contributing to open source, you'll find a lot of resources. This is one of them. How do you contribute to GitHub? Because usually when we talk about open source, the first thing clicks to mind is GitHub, although there are other providers as well, like Bitbucket, GitLab, but GitHub is like one of the unicorns, I would say. So what you would do for starting open source projects or open source contributions is find a beginner's GitHub issue that you can find with the label good first issue, and then you see, hey, this is the repository or this is the project that needs contributions. You fork that repository into your account, and then you work on your fork, which is your copy of the actual repository. It's not the actual repository, but just a copy. Then you work on your copy, you fix the issue, you modify it, and then you raise a pull request against the original PR or the original project. So when they accept your PR, it goes from your copy to their copy. And that's how it works in the open source world. And finally, I would say that being involved in open source is all about sharing. And as you know, sharing is caring. So those are some of my tips about open source. I'm quickly going to go through one small thing, and that's actually my own GitHub account. And this is, I wouldn't call it show off, but I would just call it a bit of inspiration if you guys can get from it. So this is my GitHub profile. And for the newcomers, for the freshies, this is what you might want to make your profile look like to have a lot of open source contributions. And I do not have to send my CV or resume to everyone these days, or from the past 2 years, in fact. I just showed this, and this is mainly enough. And this has been worked over in years, so you don't have to hurry about that as well. For instance, this little library that I created, I think two and a half years ago. I think it has around 3.6 million installs recently, although we had another package before. But yeah, this has about 3.5 million installs. It has around 300 stars, and trust me, it's really hard to get stars on GitHub unless someone really likes your project. It also has open issues, so it's not perfect. We do have some good first issues as well here. So these are the kind of issues that you might want to find over GitHub. You go there, you see what the issue is, then you try to fork it via this button here. into your own account, and then you work on your own repository. So this is just for an inspiration. And having said that, I think that's pretty much it about what I wanted to present, how you want to work with open source. And if you fancy a few projects, or if you fancy a few issues that you want to work on, you can reach me out directly on my Facebook or Twitter, and I can help you find those. And that's pretty much about it from me.
Good.
Thank you.
Nice action. Now, I would like to ask Diana to uh, talk about on the open source on the topic.
Perfect. Here we go. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank y'all for having me here. I have to say that it's a great opportunity to be here in this event. I'm just quickly changing my perfect. I can see this now. I was setting the screen for sharing. So well, I'd like to talk about open source as well for Hacktoberfest, but I am aware that many of you might not know who I am, and I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Diana Rodriguez. I'm a Google developer expert in web technologies, Google Cloud Platform, Google Maps Platform, and Firebase. I'm also a Microsoft MVP. I'm an Altera ambassador, and I as well work with as a Women Tech Makers ambassador. I love the community, which is why I have devoted my time to work with as many groups as possible, as much as my time permits. And I do have a full-time job. I am a Python developer advocate at Vonage. If you'd like to know a little bit more about me, you can check my website. It's superdie.dev. If not, if you're more a Twitter person, please come hang out on Twitter. My Twitter is @Kotufa82. And I'm there to talk about technology, open source in general. Something I like to say about myself always, now that you know who am I not, I'm not the oracle, which means I don't have all the answers. And the things I'm going to share with you are from my own experience, my own research, and a little bit of information that we all have in the internet. And in terms of open source, have we thought about how open source has impacted big companies, has impacted the world in a positive way? Just to inform you, open source actually came about in the 1990s. I was 16 years old when this term was coined in 1998. We define open source as development based on the sharing and collaborative improvement of software source code. So it's sharing and collaborating. This open source actually used to be called free software. And back in the 90s, the term free software had some kind of political connotation that was kind of negative. So the community was trying to come up with an initiative and a term that actually differentiated what open source actually meant. And this has been going on for ages. I think the first open source contributions that we know of started in the 1970s. But the whole initiative of open source started with the release of Netscape Navigator source code in 1998. There were no other internet browsers that were so good as it was, Netscape Navigator. And ever since this started, there are a few names I'd like to mention that changed the history of software development forever. So let's go back to 1998. There's the release of the Netscape Navigator source code, and who was involved in those meetings and what happened afterwards. So I'm going to share around 5 or 6 names and a couple of things, a couple of remarks afterwards. One of the biggest names we know in the open source industry is Linux. Linux is significant to the open source community thanks to the early adoption and use in creating and running much of the modern internet. There are so many things that are available to us that we kind of tend to take for granted that wouldn't have been possible to have in access if it weren't because of Linux. So Linux is an operating system built in 1991 by Linus Torvalds. He was a student, he's from Finland. He was a student at the time. And his goal was to create an operating system that takes into account user feedback into its development cycle. So this is what still happens. We have a lot of people from the community that actively work fixing bugs, adding features, adding support to devices, and it is actually a community initiative. This was based off Unix, which is an open source system as well. And while I don't really want to get into the history of developing these systems because of the amount of technical knowledge that it includes, the subject is very interesting, and I actually encourage you to read and investigate about it. The whole history is, there's a very, very, very thorough explanation. Check the Linux documentation project. You're not going to regret it. It's actually super worth it. So today, Linux is one of the most popular operating systems in the entire world. And we can say that around 98% of the world's fastest supercomputers are Linux-based. Isn't that amazing? 68% of tablets and mobile operating systems are Linux-based to this date. So that's one of the biggest names in the history of open source. And then the next one in the history of open source is Android. 84.82% of smartphones worldwide run on the Android operating system. It has been growing quite exponentially since 2009. And back then it only had 3.9% of the smartphone open source operating system market, sorry. I actually remember that the first DevFest I spoke at in 2009 had two big reveals. One was HTML5 and also Android as an operating system. And I actually feel quite proud. I was already almost in my 30s when that happened. I was 27 years old, but to have lived through, you know, the history of how things have been developing and to be present in today's time and in such a cool event as Hacktoberfest and know where we come from is actually a reason to be happy. So the reason why I mentioned Android is because it's actually, it's open source in nature. So Google is the Android parent company, basically makes deals to provide the software to hardware vendors to use with their devices. And then obviously they have access to Google services and marketplace to use those devices and for the community to contribute. Even tools like Android Studio are free and out there to use by developers. And now we have full mobile frameworks and languages like Kotlin, for example, based in Java. So this is one of the biggest names in the history of open source. Another name that might not be as common is GIS, and that stands for Geographical Information System. And it's basically a computer system used to capture, store, and analyze geographical and location-based data. And it's mostly used for researchers to recognize patterns and relationships in geographic data. So I think they're most used in industries like forestry, like oil and gas, like water management, transportation sectors. And when this software is used in conjunction with GPS and logistics, it can help businesses and foundations and research to become more efficient. So another thing to note is that not every GIS solution is open source, but many of the early pioneers in this technology were proponents of free software, which was the previous name of open source as we know it today. The original GIS solution is called MOS, and it stands for Map Overlay and Statistical System, was developed by the US Department of Interior in 1978. And it was free. It was open source in 1978. It was put to the access of the tech ecosystem. And we can say that nearly all systems built since then, from GPS to location services, have built on that original open source solution. So without these open source fundamentals, like a huge number of logistics and control systems and location-based services would not exist or still be pretty much in their infancy. Isn't that awesome? So yeah, we're in our top 3. The fourth name to mention in this open source history is kind of a bittersweet for many. It's grand for many developers. It's a nightmare for others, but it is nonetheless a name that actually made a huge difference in the history of web development, and it is WordPress. One of the most popular blogging and web content management systems. So it is based on open source fundamentals. And I remember when WordPress actually was only used for blogging. Again, I'm feeling old. So without the open source initiative, the software scripts or the software there, the framework that supports 27% of the web wouldn't exist. WordPress is open source. The fact that WordPress is open source means that anyone can alter the code or create plugins. That's the principle. And there are over 30,000 of these plugins, which actually add additional functionality to whatever website or blog is created using WordPress. Things like SEO, security, analytics, e-commerce, they're also open source, and there are paid versions, but without the open source initiative, one of the most functional CMSs in the world would not exist. And to give you even more information, there are some big names actually using WordPress, like the New York Post, the New York Times, no, the New York Post actually. The New York Post website is 100% based on WordPress. Isn't that awesome? We're getting to an even bigger name, which is amazing as well in the history of open source, and that is Firefox. Without Firefox, the browser market would be extremely different. So without Firefox, instead of having like a 4 main solution battle, it would be reduced to 3. If you factor that Safari is only available to Apple users, then it would become a 2 solution battle. You would have to pick between Google with Chrome or Microsoft with Edge now. It used to be Internet Explorer for a long time, right? The fact that there's more than one option that is for non-Apple users completely changes the market, and it basically forces those proprietary systems to be continually improved on, or they risk losing market share. So I think Firefox totally deserves this mention here because it pushes innovation. And almost finishing, GitHub. The biggest thing that happened to open source in the last decade is the introduction by GitHub of the pull request. So GitHub gave the open source visibility and basically made more accessible the playing field for collaboration. So we have pull requests thanks to GitHub. You know, the collaboration was always the heart of the open source promise, but it wasn't until GitHub unlocked the social aspects of coding that open source became real. So yeah, obviously we had version control before, but GitHub and GitLab, actually I have to say it as well, made it easy for anyone to fork code, try things, and then contribute with their ideas back to those main repositories. Comments, issues, approval, it really, really, really made the promise of code being open a reality. So yeah, we know Git wasn't born in the last decade, but like cloud, it didn't really boom until the 2010s, basically. And the last technology I'd like to mention is containers in general. Like, you know, like version control in Git, containers weren't new. But because the idea emerged in 1979 with something called Crute. And there were containers much earlier, but Crute was actually the first thing that was actually famous in, you know, in the sphere of containers. But it was Docker that really made containers come alive. So Docker, or to be more precise, Docker tech transformed containers, basically from an obscure technology to the mainstay of how software is consumed today. It changed everything. And then it changed everything for enterprise application development. And it's not only because it's cool to think about virtualization that way, but before Docker and then Kubernetes, containers were basically used as another partitioning technique. The cool thing with Docker is when they actually worried about the developer experience side, and then things went on, like reinventing the CI/CD pipelines and so on, right? 10 years ago, no one had heard of Docker and Kubernetes. And nowadays, a couple months ago, more than, I don't know what, no, last year actually, it's coming. KubeCon had, in KubeCon 2019, they had over 15,000 people to show up at the conference. And it's gonna be around 80,000 people this year and the years to come. So it's grand. Now that we know how open source changed the history of development in general, it's a good thing to also think about, how do I contribute? Ahsan actually made some amazing points. The aim of open source is to bring, of Hacktoberfest, sorry, is to bring more people into open source, to give people that starting step. And then, yeah, obviously we do have impact. We can collaborate to projects, we can gain new skills, we can improve our professional development. And then obviously we get prizes, but the prizes shouldn't be the main objective of participating on Hacktoberfest. If we add the use of technology for good to make a true impact on the projects we are collaborating, then the reward is much, much bigger. Also about the things we learn. You don't have to be 100% knowledgeable in programming languages or everything. You can contribute with translations, with code, with design, with the skills that you actually know, and they can make a long-lasting impact in the history of technology. I assure you that the people who met up to start the open source software foundation, as a foundation, had no idea how things were going to change the world to the point where we're at now. Everything is accessible and it's within the reach of our fingers. To finish my I sort of chat with you. I'd like to share the don'ts of what shouldn't happen in Hacktoberfest. And this is quick recommendations for all of you. Don't do spammy PRs. Spammy PRs are PRs that are not helping. Don't try to do a +1 attempt on your PR accounts. It's not like you're gonna do a typo fix is okay, but if you send 5 PRs to remove a white space, then it defeats the purpose of what contributing to open source is, and it's taking the opportunity in the future to do nicer things. So let's treasure this opportunity. And yes, cash in the prices, that's grand. I want my t-shirt too. I want to be rewarded for the effort, but let's do it right. And of course, let's not cause disruption. There's a TLDR on what you can do on the cycle of all the ways you can do, you can contribute in Hacktoberfest and open source projects. And I'm going to leave this link. Obviously, at the end, I will share the link to these slides. This is a video I made on Git and GitHub 101 for Hacktoberfest. And there's a project that if you want to contribute to, it has a very, very friendly learning curve. It's my project, Tech for Good, and it's very well documented. Thank you so much for your attention, and I wish you happy hacking. There's a link to the slides. Please enjoy this experience and make it something rewarding. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome, Diana. It was a nice talk, and thank you so much for such a wonderful talk. And now I would like Wajahat Karim to join us and tell us about the open source and give us a tech talk on the topic on open source.
Hello guys, how are you? My name is Wajahat Karim, and sorry for the late. So thank you Hacktoberfest, thank you Ahsan, thank you Hunain, and thank you Diana. It was a very wonderful talk. I really enjoyed it. So I was curious about the history of open source, and I think that you explained it pretty well. So thank you for that. So it's been a while since I've been doing a lot of international talks, mostly in English. So I wanted to do some events in Pakistan, in Karachi. So I thought that it's a better way to, end the year. It's a very horrible year, disaster year actually. So I hope this talk will be helpful for you folks, especially for beginners who have always been like wondering that what it's like to maintain and build an open source library. So my name is Wajahat Karim, and I have been working on Android for like more than 8 years now, and I'm the currently Pakistan's very few Android Google developer experts at the moment, and I have been very active in open source contribution for like 3-4 years now. So this year I have been less active on open source, but every year I'm very excited about Hacktoberfest, and I wanted to do some events of Hacktoberfest. So I think that this is the exact platform I needed at this exact moment when Hacktoberfest is in initial stages, and we have got like 1 whole month to do some real contributions and real open source work. So yeah. I will be mostly focusing on theoretical or practical way to do actually some open source libraries. So let's get it started. So before I go into the details, I'd like to share some of my work. That this is my profile, and as Ahsan already told, this is how your profile should look like. Like you should have a couple of libraries with a lot of stars. Like I have this one from 1.2k stars. So this is an old picture, so it has less number of stars, but it has grown. So something like you should have a very active profile with users liking your work. So on GitHub, it's shown with stars and downloads. So yeah. So I have these are only 6 libraries which I've pinned here. Beside that, you can actually do more libraries and more work, and you can only pin 6. So I have already like 13, 14 libraries. So I'll be summarizing my whole experience with them and show you that how it's done. So this is my first library. Actually, this is how I actually got into open source. I never realized that this would be so much popular because I always thought that it's a simple thing. Like I was working on an English vocabulary application and I needed a flashcard which will like flip sides. On one side there will be word, on other side there will be meaning. You know how flashcards work. So I wanted to implement that, and somehow I did it, and it was at that time that I got motivated for trying to do some open source work. So I said, okay, let's build a library and do it. So it was my first time in everything, from packaging, from licensing, from uploading on GitHub, from promoting it and everything. But it like it blown away. Like it got viral on Reddit and on Medium and on Twitter, and people started using it. So far, it's already been used in like 300,000 applications worldwide, and I have always like imagined that what kind of application those would be who was using my actual code. Like they have my name in their code, they have my name in their package name. So seriously, this helped me sleep. Like this helped me in giving a satisfaction that I'm giving something back to the country, to the community. Like you would have ever imagined you are like you are actually stuck in some bug and you are trying to find solution around the internet, and somehow you find a solution on Stack Overflow or some code on GitHub, and you're like, wow. So imagine that if that person who didn't actually wrote that answer, of if that person who didn't put it on GitHub, if they didn't do it, then where will you be? Like this is how our developer community works. This is how these are the people who help you beyond the way and beyond their comfort zone, and spending nights and burning midnight oil and all everything with no return, like nothing. You will get a t-shirt for contributing Hacktoberfest, but these are folks who are actually developing large frameworks and large open source libraries or Linux or something. They don't get paid for anything. Like they don't get anything. So they are doing it only for community. And this is what open source means. This is everything. It's not about teacher. It's not about getting reward. It's not about getting payment or something. It's only about helping other people who are stuck at that moment in any bug or any crash or any problem. So this is about open. And other one of my library, Medium Killer. Actually, this library I created on the second day of Eid while I was getting bored within like 3-4 hours, and I wrapped it up and uploaded it on Pinterest for Maven Central, and went to the GitHub and shared a simple link on Reddit, and boom, it got in the trending at Medium in GitHub. Like it was trending at #1 in open source library. So far, it's already been viewed in like 150,000 applications. So yeah, it feels awesome. Also, getting in the trending list on GitHub is really amazing. So yeah, it's awesome. So you might be wondering that if I have done so much work on open source, what would be the point of it? Like this is the point. You know, in past 3 years, I have got a lot of opportunities from the worldwide big companies, and as Ahsan earlier said, that all you need is a very good GitHub profile or very good Stack Overflow file. If you are a developer, if you want to prove that you are a developer and you are rockstar and company should hire you, this is the place you want to bet on. This is the place you want to build upon. So I got a job offer from Facebook only for my open source contribution. So yeah, let's see. Uh, I work in Facebook and wanted to get in touch as I impressed by your experience at control software and your open source contribution. You know, no writing, no articles, nothing, only open source contribution. So why they sent me email? Actually, Facebook had a library which was used for image loading like Picasso in Android. It's called Fresco. So I was using that and I had a problem with that. So I looked into their issues and repository and I found that no one has solved it. So I said, okay, this will help me getting along the application and also maybe this will help other thousands of developers who are using Fresco. So I actually fixed that and did a pull request and boom, it got merged. And 2 days later, I get this email, welcome to Fresco. So apparently I went through whole process and it was long and tough, challenges, interviews and tests and peer coding sessions and all that. So it took me like 2 to 3 months in going through the process and they said, okay, we would like to invite you to London for our hiring and onboarding process and we want you to join our messenger and Android. So like, wow. So I didn't invent it. I was going through the process just to see that whether I would clear it or not. And I was curious that what would be a hiring process for Facebook. So that's why I never intended to leave the country. I wanted to stay in this country, and that's why I declined it. I asked them if they are willing to, offer me a remote job, but at that time there was no COVID. It was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I guess. So yeah, I have written a detailed account on it at my website, wajahatkarim.com/job. So yeah, I'd like you to read it if you are into that. And you can ping me anytime on Facebook and Twitter, everything. So let's see. So this is everything. This cycle is everything. I'm going to practically show you this whole cycle. So you have 3 things. Number one, develop. So you are stuck in a problem. It could be anything like it could be UI view as I created one, or it could be any device detector as Ahsan created, or it could be any utility, or it could be any, if you are into Android, it could be any Kotlin extension function, or anything like anything which will speed up the process for developers. Like the thing for example, in FlipView, I wrote like more than 600 lines of code. Now, developers can actually implement it within 5 lines of code. So they can implement the whole FlipView functionality in just 5 lines of code because I have already done that, those 600 lines of code. So this is all about development. So you have to implement the functionality and actually do it and fix that problem or anything which you want to do open. Once you are done with developing cycle, then you have to distribute it. Now, this is a trickier part and this is boring part as well because you might be wondering, oh, how do I upload this on uh, you know, 5 packages, or how do I upload it on NPM? You are a Node.js or full stack kind of guy, or how you want to do it on JCenter or Maven or because you are in Gradle, so in Android or something like that. So you have packaged the application, you have packaged the code and created a library and managed to somehow upload it on NPM or JCenter. And now you are hoping that people will use it. So If I today search your library on npm directory, I will get hundreds of others which will probably do the same task which your library is doing. So as a developer, why should I use it? Your library. Why not other hundreds of libraries? What is the main thing in your library which other library does not have? In my experience, I have got that is the only one thing, which is documentation. You should have a very awesome README. If your library is README, it's not on that level. Your library is done. No matter how many features you have, or how many functionality you are fixing, no many how performant your library is. But if you don't have a good README, then nobody is going to look into your library. And because developers are on GitHub to look for solution, and if they don't want the explanation or usage instruction for that solution, then they'll look elsewhere. They will ignore it. I even ignore it many things. Like, oh, this doesn't contain a good README. Oh, their README is very short. They don't have anything in it. Or, oh, how do I use it? So I will have to look into the code to use it. No, not my drill. Okay, I'm done. Going to other one. So that's how important your README is. Then the last part, maintenance. So you might be wondering that, okay, I implemented a library and I uploaded it. I have a code README, and now people are using it. Now I have got one another library in my sketch. If you look into my GitHub profile, you will observe that for the last 1 year, I have never uploaded a new library on GitHub. It's not like I can't do it. It's not like I haven't done it. It's like, how am I supposed to do it? Library creation, open source work creation is easy. Maintenance is hard. You know, you have to fix issues, you have to improve it, you have to continuously build new functionalities. Then you get this all system. Like people start to email you, where is the code, where is this thing, where is that thing, or they start to spam the whole issue board. Like, I need this too, I need this too, I need this too, I need this too. And once you are not able to help someone, like you have some family event in your home, or you have some medical emergency, or you are busy at work, or simply you are not able to uh, fix a solution or do it, then some people will actually abuse you. They will actually start calling you names and whatnot. It's horrible. It's a disaster for any open source maintainer. It's like uh, I never understood that concept, that why actually people expect that open source developers will do their job. Like, they are not getting paid. You are not paying us. So why are you expecting that we will fix the issue as soon as possible? No, we are doing it open source work for community. If you want to help us, come along and we will do it together. You know, I have created one simple library for flipping the card, and people started liking it, people started using it, and then they started asking for more features. I need this, I need that, I need this, I need that. And what was my response? Can you do it? Yes. So people started contributing back, and I started with one feature, they added 10 more. And this is all about Hacktober. Hacktoberfest is all about. Like, this is the motivation behind Hacktoberfest. Like, everywhere, they want people to encourage contribution to others. So now let me show you some good examples about how to develop and how to distribute and how to maintain. So one second. Uh, Hunain, is my screen
Yes,
visible?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Check on how it yeah. So this is my GitHub. Okay. So these are some of the libraries which I have implemented. You will see the contribution which I have done every year. All the organizations I have done some work for Android. Of course, I'm an Android developer. So yeah. So for example, we come here on EDP. Okay. So you can see that I have a pattern for every library. So you need to have some badges like build parsing, what is the current version and where it is available, and in Android case, what is the minimum API level or something. And then you need to have a explanation. And most important, I have seen that a lot of developers actually don't do it because sometimes time consuming and sometimes not interesting work. It's a boring work. Like you have to actually develop, you know, um, demo and GIF. GitHub does not support videos or something, so you have to upload at least images or GIF. If you can do GIF, it's better because it will show the whole functionality moving. So yeah, this is very important. And then change log. I don't do change log. If you do it, it's good. Installation. You need to have a very thorough and very detailed, like usage instructions and something like that. Once you are done, uh, you can see that I have one other section, non-issues. This is to help you save from the abuses or name calling or hate speech from other, users who are expecting that you are doing this. So if you have some issue which is not possible or which you haven't found any time, so you can actually declare it like this is a non-issue and this is how you can solve it and I haven't solved it or something like that. So yeah, and then most important, license. So I have always wondered that what it means for the people who are actually joining open source and what it means for the people who are actually using the others' work on open source. So it's like this. The code available on GitHub is not some garbage code which some developer have put it on GitHub because he thinks that it may help him get some job at Facebook or Google or Amazon. No, not like that. And as a user, you do not get full right to use it. That's simple. It's someone else's code. You need to give him credit for that. You cannot, if you do not give him credit, then you are actually stealing. So stealing is bad and stealing is not ethical. So that's where license comes. So my license is Apache license. The Apache license means that you can use this code in any personal or commercial project in free, and you do not need to uh, notify me or ask my permission or mention it in your application that oh hey I'm using Easy Flip View is created by Wajahat Karim. So yeah, you can do it. But still, if it's in your application, then good. Like I have seen that some applications have this open source license option, and when you open that, it will show you a screen with all the licenses which the application is using. It's a good approach. You should do it. You should at least get a credit. You should at least say thanks. You know, they are not asking for money. They are asking for a little, appreciation. Hey, you have done a great job. Thank you. You saved me hours of struggle in 2 lines of code. So yeah, it's good. So this is how good readme should look like. Should have, and if your library is somehow very detailed, For example, I have this other library, Easy Validation. It's a very large library, and I have been building over the years slowly and slowly. So I thought that, okay, I cannot do this in, uh, you know, I cannot write the whole usage of this library in a simple GitHub readme. So I added a quick usage, and then I actually created a whole website on that. So you probably have seen that. Like Gitbook is a good website which will help you create a good documentation. So it has patches and explanation that what is going on and how to do it and everything. So this is a good practice that you can do. Yep. Then I've also seen that is one thing about readme. Now once you have done readme, then comes your releases. So yeah, here are the releases. So you can see that every release comes with a version and comes with a tag and some document about what is this release doing. This release is fixing issue number 10. This release is doing this and this and this, and something like that. So you need to have a good release with good documentation and update it. And this will take some time, yes, but this is important because the, the way you do it, this will be appreciated. People will appreciate it because they will find it easy to follow, and they will find it user friendly, developer friendly. So once you have done releases and you have actually managed to upload the library, then comes the promotion. That is a good way is you create a good YouTube video on how to use that library, and then you write a good article about why you have created that library and how it works and what problems it solves, and you can promote it. So also, if you have some big library, you can actually do public speaking as well, like go to some event and share your experience that why you created that library and what problems you are solving and what was the motivation behind it, and how people are how people should use it. And, so, so this is a good approach. So once that's done, your library is now available on internet and people are using it and people know that how. Now they will start adding issues. Issues could be multiple. They could be, bugs which they found in your library, or they could be feature requests. Oh, I need this specific feature. Can you do it? So yeah, this is all. And you can also create your own issues and notify the user or developers that I'm working on this, so that they don't panic or something like that. So if somehow some user is interested and want to solve a problem, then they will contribute back and they will create a pull request. So this is how a pull request looks like, and you can scan the code and see that what kind of files they have changed and what kind of comments they have done. And if you find it very good, you can actually use it in your application. So
Okay,
that's
Wajahat,
simple.
can you also tell me that what does the label on the issues mean? There are a lot of labels like Hacktoberfest and different labels
Yeah,
in the issue
yeah,
section.
labels. I'll come into that later. Yeah, I have that in mind. So now you have issues and you have pull requests. So now, if your project is very long, like Linux or something, or at least your library is going in some direction, then you can actually create a project. GitHub comes with projects, and for example, I wanted to do this source module, so I created issues, and these are the issues which are already in here, like number 14, number 13, number 36, and this. And you can mention that this is in progress, this is done, and you can keep track of the how your library is getting along, and you can bring other people, other contributors, and get their help and manage it as well. So maintenance is hard, developing is easy. You spend like 30% of time and your library is in air live and people are using it. But rest of the 70% is all about maintaining that library. So you probably have seen that a lot of libraries which are years old and they have like either they are archived, like you can see this library is not active anymore, or developer have somehow put a notice that oh, I'm not working with it. If you want to do it, I can help you transfer the library. So this is why they get stuck, or technology get deprecated, or they don't get much time, they have babies or something like that, and they stop doing it. So yeah, that is one thing. Then for the issued classifying, you have some labels. Some labels are built in. You can add some more, like this is a bug, this is duplicate, this is enhancement, help wanted. So yeah, these three issues. Good first issue, Hacktoberfest, help wanted. These three are good, and then up for grabs. So if you label any issue with good first issue, it will encourage beginner developers that involved in that. Like as a beginner developer, I will be like, wow, this is GitHub. I cannot do anything. My code is not on that level. Like I barely write a good code. How am I supposed to do on GitHub? So don't let that ruin you. I'm not satisfied with my code, even after all these years working. So just put it in and see that how, if people don't like your code, they will help you, they will improve it, they will suggest you, they will give you advices on you should do that, you should do that. It will uh, give you some real lesson which you may not be able to learn in some industry or some experience or some articles or something like that. So it is actually helping you, it is actually growing you as a developer, so it's good. And then uh, good first issues are supposed to be some documentation fixes, are very easy fixes. These are for beginners. Then help wanted, something like you are stuck in a issue and you can't fix it, just put a help wanted. And throughout this whole world, someone will notice that issue and they will actually uh, give you a contribution, give you a pull request, or at least let you know in comments that how can you solve it. I have seen it in action. Like I have seen that actually some people actually help me fix my issues. So yeah, it's good. Then up for grabs. Up for grabs is I don't have much time to do this. So if anyone is interested, just do it and I'll merge it. So this is like a printed mantra. So then you can do in progress, invalid, or cushion, and you can put these labels. And there are some issues which are beyond your library or which may not lie in the library scope. You just add one fix, and the developers will not complain because they will see that you have added one fix, and they will not argue with you. No, why am fixing it? I need this in my application. I have a deadline tomorrow. My boss will kill me. But put a one fix label, and it's not their problem. It's not your problem. So yeah, this is how it's done. And I think one more thing about. Yeah, I think that's it. So this is all about Hacktober, and I also, you know, uh, wrote an article which actually comes in top about Hacktoberfest. So this article, I wrote this it last year, and it is again updated it in this year. So there is a library. There is a simple. If you are not aware of how Oktoberfest works, or what you know what is all about, and how you can contribute back, and if you don't know coding or something like that, then this is a good article, and this comes with a step-by-step solution to how you can actually make your first pull request. So this will create a pull request in this library. Hacktoberfest 20. The pull request in this library will not count it towards it, but I am getting a very good response. Last year in Hacktoberfest 2019, I got like 1,300 pull requests throughout a month. It's only 3 days, and I have already got 127 pull requests this time. So it's growing, and it's good, and you can see that how to get started through this article and that. So yeah, that's about me, and
Okay.
done.
Okay, Wajahat, I want to ask that some people say that why should I contribute to open source? What's my benefit of contributing to open source? So,
Okay.
how can you encourage people to contribute towards open source?
Okay, I'll give you two examples on that. Number one is that let's say we live in Karachi and we have some serious problem of garbage around the city. Okay, so now one guy wakes up in the morning and decides that today I will clean my street, no matter what people say, and no matter how many money it involved, I will clean my own street and do it for others. So he actually does the job, and then people start, you know, making fun of him. Oh, are you crazy? Why are you doing it? This is not a job. This is government job. So, okay. So he still continues, and then one day he sees that no one else is interested, and he just gives it away and give up, leaves it. Okay. Why am I doing if nobody is doing it? So
Hmm.
open source is like that. A lot of people are doing open source. Okay. Now some people are abusing them. You are this. You don't find time. You are excusing. You are giving excuses. Or your library sucks. Your library have issues or something. But he is still maintaining that library and is still creating new libraries and other libraries and giving back to community. If we keep continuing that abuse and we keep continuing uh, discouraging the people who are actually giving back to community, they will stop it. The only way to make sure that this continues and this goes on is give back. You do not discourage that person who is cleaning garbage. You grab the sweeper and you actually contribute back. Okay, you are cleaning your own street. Okay, I will clean my own. So this is the motivation for me to do open source. Like these folks who have created Android, who have created Linux, who have created Apache, who have created whatnot. You know, Diana had pretty sure explained that how many projects are open source. They are running on their sole contribution. People are giving back, and they don't get paid. They don't get paid, and they don't need money. They actually need some encouragement, appreciation from you. So as a developer, if you are actually giving a little tiny source code of yours to community, it gives a hope to other developers. It gives hope to those open source contributors. So that is first motivation. Now come to the practical motivation. Second answer, your GitHub profile is your developer resume, your developer CV. The more better your GitHub profile is, more better your open source contributions are, the more good developer you are, at least in the eyes of recruiters. Recruiters from Facebook or Google or Amazon. They will not ask you CV, they will not ask you for cover letter. They will ask you for Stack Overflow and your GitHub profile links. They will search your name on Google, like what you get on Google. When you search my name, so what you get on Google. That's what they want to see. They don't want to see like, oh wow, they want to see your profile, they want to see your books, they want to see your website and LinkedIn and your videos and your articles and your GitHub. They don't want to see your Facebook, that your Facebook profile is this. They are not interested in your Instagram or TikTok stories. They are finding you. what have you done which other thousands of developers have not done? And GitHub will help you make you distinct, will help you make it unique. So that is primary motivation for you if you are a Pakistan and want to get some serious jobs in abroad. So, yeah.
Okay, that's great. Okay, okay. Some people say that you are very beginner to contribute towards open source. First, go and learn some things, and then come back, and then you can contribute. So, is it okay to say that, or a person who is beginner to open source can also beginner to coding or programming can also contribute towards open source?
Yes, of course, yes. So Google actually manages an open source program called as Google Summer of Code. So it's a yearly program which is in summer, June and July for university students specifically. It's all about students. If you have, if you are alumni or if you are not in university, you are not eligible. So why Google spend, and they will give you like $5,000 or $6,000 for your contributions in those 2 months. So my question is, why Google is paying a lot of money on students if they think that students are not a good fit, students do not know much code, students are not good at coding, or students are not able to, contribute to open source. That is your imagination, not Google. Google thinks you are fit to do it. So why should you not think it? You should think positive. You should think like, okay, I can do it. So that is one answer. Other answer is that you do not need high-level coding skills for open source contribution. A lot of projects does not have good documentation. A lot of project does not have good examples, demos, something. You at least can create a good example demo of application of any specific library and share it in that original repository. That, hey, I created this repository demo. This will help you better understand it. Or you can also update the documentation. You need English skills. No, for that. Okay, I'm going to explain it in more details and show you around. So you can help in spelling fixes, grammatical mistakes, or you can not only you should do contribution, you can actually create issues so that people know that what this library problems are, so that other developers or the creator can solve it. So creating issues also counts to your GitHub profile and also counts to the open source contribution. It's not all about coding. It's all about how you want to contribute and how you want to improve and how you want to give back.
Okay, okay, okay. That's great, Wajahat. Thank you for your time, and it was a nice talk. And I personally enjoyed having a conversation with you. Uh, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
And
you,
now,
Nan, and thank
okay,
you, Hacktoberfest, IBA, Ahsan
okay.
Ayaz, Diana, for having me here. Thank you for the audience for watching me. And
I would like to tell a little bit more about Hacktoberfest. That what's Hacktoberfest, and let me open my slides first. Okay, so actually Hacktoberfest is a month-long celebration of open source softwares, and this event is presented by DigitalOcean, Intel, and Dev this year. So Hacktoberfest is for everyone, for every level of developer, and anyone can join it, whether he's a part of open source community or not. He can join and celebrate Hacktoberfest. And years ago, let me take you to the background of the Hacktoberfest. That the very first Hacktoberfest was started 7 years ago, and it just started with a blog post.
and our dream of inspiring people to come from all over the world and contribute and support open source. And years later, thanks to many maintainers and open source contributors and community organizers, that this dream has become a reality. And in the last year, Hacktoberfest 2019, there were amazing results. There were about 4,83,127 pull requests from all the participants. The participating repositories were 1,54,767, and the top language of Hacktoberfest 2019 was JavaScript, and it was used in 89,603 PRs. As you can see, there are graphs of Hacktoberfest 2019. The top 10 languages were JavaScript, Python, HTML, Java, C++, TypeScript, PHP, CSS, and Ruby. So this is the 7th annual Hacktoberfest, and this year DigitalOcean is going to bring together a significant number of people to support the open source and contribute towards open source. And at this global event, there are open source repositories for developers to become contributors, students and beginners to learn more and develop their more skills by contributing towards open source libraries and open source projects. And after participating on this event, this global event, you will learn a little bit more. You will meet new people, you will work on new projects, and you will help open source for the betterment of people and for the betterment of people to use it today and in the future as well. And don't forget that DigitalOcean is going to provide a very special limited edition Hacktoberfest t-shirt to the top 70,000 participants who make their 4 successful pull requests. And I hope you guys will support open source in this Hacktoberfest. And
thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ahsan Ayaz. Thank you, Wajahat Karim and Diana, for joining us in the event. And especially thanks to Ahsan that he has joined me as a co-host. And thanks to my friends who supported me promoting this event and supported me in telling me that we should do this event. It was my first time. There were very technical issues in the event, but we will be uploading the
recorded session as well. So those who will see difficulties in the live streaming, they can get the recorded session as well, and I will upload it. And thank you everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, you can approach us on the event page. We will love to answer you those questions as well. Thank you. Hafiz, Wajahat, Hafiz, Ahsan. Have a nice evening. Good night.
Hafiz, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.